Hello and thank you so very much for being here. This is your favorite Murtad, and this time around we have a very special guest. Guys, I know you guys have been waiting for so long from the last 1.5 years to get Dr. J. Smith back on the show. And today we have the opportunity to finally get him to come back from his busy schedule. This live stream was rescheduled from Tuesday to today, so let's not waste any time. So let us invite Hadrat Dr. J. Smith, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How are you, brother? God bless you, and thanks for coming here.
Adam, good to be on your show. Good to be on your channel. Thanks for welcoming me. It sounds like you've really got everything up and running. Looks like we're going to have a good time.
Amen to that. Absolutely, absolutely. And our people are so excited. I can see people are sharing it, people are liking it. And guys, retweet, retweet. Let's get all the Twitter kings come here as well. So, Dr. J. Smith, thank you once again for being here. We had some basic study that we did almost a year and a half ago. Um, and that was beautiful. That was beautiful. You ran one page of your presentation for almost 1.5 hours. And that one page had so much information, so much depth, and a lot of people loved it. What are you going to explain today in general before you could go into your deep study of the topic?
Yeah, the topic we're going to do today is how historical is Muhammad? And of course, this is a topic that not many people like to touch. It's very volatile. You can see why. I think you know, Adam, that you can pretty much confront the Quran and take on the Quran, and you're not going to get too much kickback. You're going to get some, but not many people are going to say too much. You can confront Allah, the same thing. You can say that he is not the true God, and you can even give support for others that would claim, or even some difficulties with what Allah has done in history. But when you touch Muhammad, if you touch Muhammad, it gets visceral. And this is why most people don't like to take on Muhammad. I am one of those. I don't usually like to take on Muhammad. And it's been only in this year, really, that I have been taking on Muhammad historically. And so something has happened, though, this year that I wanted to refer to that happened about 5 months ago. And that's why I want to bring this up again. And this is some statements that were made by two very well reputable Muslim scholars. You know who they are, Dr. Shabir Ali and Dr. Yasir Qadi.
Ooh, Shabir Ali and Yasir Qadi. Wow, they just cannot stop giving, seems like.
Give some background. Who is Shabir Ali and who is Dr. Yasir Qadi?
Shabir Ali is a PhD professor in Canada, and he has a couple of channels as well. And one of the beautiful part was that when I was a Muslim, and I was trying to become a little bit of a moderate Muslim as compared to what I was in Pakistan, I started listening to him, and I loved him. I loved him. And then we had some issues, and somehow in my journey, I figured out Quran is the perfect word of Allah, and that's my rock, and hadiths can be bad. So I became what I call right now is Ahlul Choice Pro Max. So Ahl means the people of, choice means I would choose whatever hadith I want to, and Pro Max because I never had any argument why I'm choosing it, except that I like this one and I don't like that one. So these are my own terminology that I introduced is Ahlul Choice and Ahlul Choice Pros and Ahlul Choice Pro Max. So I became the Ahlul Choice Pro Max, and the top level of it. So, and then somehow I saw your debate with Dr. Shabir Ali, which happened in 2012, but I was watching it in 2016.
It was in 2014, the debate.
14. So I was watching it in 2017, and man, that was a utmost shameful debate for Dr. Shabir Ali. You spoke for the first 30 minutes in your opening, and the only thing Shabir Ali has to give is the miracle of 19 for his 30 minutes. And you came in and you just said one single sentence, and the whole argument of Shabir went down the drain. And your sentence was, Mr. Shabir, which Quran are you referring to when you're giving the miracle of 19. That is called the classical debate between Jabir Ali and Dr. J. Smith. And trust me, I have given this debate to so many Muslims who have come to a conclusion that there is so much errors and problems and moral issues in the ahadith, and now they think that Quran is their rock, and Quran has never been changed, it has never been preserved. I have given this debate to so many of them, and through this debate, you have no idea, Dr. J. Smith, how many of the Pakistani and Indian Muslims have realized that Islam has nothing to stand on. So I will thank you once again for this beautiful debate. All of your work is on one side, and that one single debate holds heavy on the other side. Let me just say that. That is how much I regard that debate.
Well, thank you so much. And listen, that was 11 years ago. That debate was on the Quran. And again, much of what we did in that debate, just looking at the 6 manuscripts, I don't think he was prepared for that. I don't think he had heard about these manuscripts. He wasn't aware of the variants in the consonantal text in these manuscripts. And so in many respects, I felt kind of sorry, because the only thing he could fall back on is the miracle of the number 19. These set of verses with these set of verses, you get 19. These set of verses with these set of verses, you get 19, 19, 19. I remember going back afterwards and just looking at his rebuttal, and that argument took actually 19 minutes. And I think that was more the miracle, that he only took 19 minutes to basically not say anything about what the whole debate was about. And in some respects, this is why the historical critique, which I love and which I have been using, and which I started back in 1995 with Dr. Jamal Badawi on the whole notion: can Islam, can it stand historically? Is it sound historically? Do they have a book that was written just like what we have today, that was compiled in a place called Mecca, Medina, those 2 cities, all 114 surahs in our hands today that we can look at? And the answer is obviously no. Can they even have a place called Mecca that existed, the same Mecca that exists today? Did it exist in the 7th century? Is there any reference to it prior or even during that century? And the answer is no. And then, of course, the one that's most contentious is, what about the man himself? If there's no Mecca, then which Muhammad are we talking about? Because he was born there. That's where he spent 52 years before he moved to Medina. He received the Meccan revelations there. So Mecca, if Mecca is no longer in existence, then which Muhammad are we talking about? Obviously, there could be many Muhammads in the 7th century, but which is the one we're talking about? Because in order for Muhammad to have existed, the Muhammad of Islam requires 4 things. And the 4 things he requires is, first of all, he had to have been born in Mecca, lived 52 years there, had to receive a book called the Quran in that time period, and he had to, that book had to have been 114 surahs, not a little bit here, not something from him or a patch from here. It had to be all 114 surahs, because this is what Muslims claim. This is what's in Al-Bukhari, Sahih Bukhari, Volume 6, Hadith number 509 and 510. And more importantly, all of these events that took place in his life, receiving the Quran, had to have happened and be finished by 632. So that was the problem. That is the problem that is still in existence today. How are you going to fulfill that? Now, that man at that place doing those things in that time, those are the 4 things we always ask of any historical character. And we had to do the same thing with Jesus Christ. Can you imagine, Adam, if we said of Jesus Christ, we don't care what Jesus you find in the 1st century, he existed because we can find references to him. We don't care. As long as you can find references to Jesus Christ in the 1st century, we'll be satisfied. But no Christian would ever accept that. We demand that the Jesus we're talking about was born in Bethlehem, grew up in Nazareth, died in Jerusalem, and rose again, and claimed to be God. That's the Jesus we want to look at. That's the Jesus we demand. Because if Jesus did not do any of those things in that time period, then you and I are damned. And we would not accept any other Jesus. We need that Jesus. And if we demand that for Jesus, Muslims must demand the same for their prophet. They're not just going to accept any person named Muhammad. So here's the difficulty for Muslims. in order to do what we have done for Jesus, because this was asked of Jesus way back in the 1800s in Germany and places like Tübingen, Wellhausen, can you prove that there is a historical Jesus? Can you prove that what Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John said about him? Can you prove that he actually said these things and did these things? And more importantly, did he die on the cross? And then did he rise again? Because that's at the very basis of everything we believe, his death and resurrection. And boy, we were caught with our pants down, as we say in English here in the United States. We did not have the evidence, not in the 1800s. And so by 1905, it decimated the church. Has still, along with Darwinianism, the church has really not recovered in places like Europe. In America, it has, and in other places, in Africa, certainly in Asia, it has, because we have done our homework since then. And we have found now who this Jesus is. We have found that there are external evidence for the person of Jesus Christ in the first century, and not just any Jesus, for the Jesus who was born in Bethlehem. We have now found Nazareth. That was always a problem until the last 20 years. There was no reference. We couldn't find where this city called Nazareth, that has now been found. It has been excavated. But we had to do that. We had to prove that these places that are written about him, what he did and what he said. What he did and what he said, well, Muslims should know what we're talking about, because that's the siddha of Jesus, what he did and what he said. That would be the hadith of Jesus. So there's the siddha and the hadith of Jesus. We have been able to support the siddha and hadith of Jesus. And we have done that so much so that that's why we are so confident that we do have the right man. We do have the right place. We do have the right events, and we have it in the right time. Now, the same thing must be asked of Islam and any religion that makes historical claims. Every religion does make. The Mormons make historical claims. The Jehovah's Witnesses make historical claims. The Hindus, the Sikhs, the Hindus, the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, there are all kinds of historical claims in those books. They have to support those claims. The Granth Sahib for the Sikhs, they have to support those historical claims. And certainly Islam has the same problem, because the Quran and the traditions are full of historical claim after historical claim about this man, Muhammad, born in Mecca, lived 52 years there, died in Medina, lived the last 10 years of his life in Medina, did many things. And what he did and what he said have to be supported historically. Why? Because every religion that claims to be historical, in order to verify, support, give credibility and authority for everything they do, comes from one man really one book modeled by one man. That's why Christianity and Islam are so similar. Both Christianity and Islam, both of us believe in one book modeled by one man, the Book of the Man. I say Book of the Man, I've been saying it for years. And it's become a phrase almost that it's always equated with everything I do. The Book of the Man, the Book of the Man. Now I add to that the place. The Book of the Man, the place. But let's stay with the Book of the Man today, because we really want to look and ask about this man. What did he say and what did he do? Now, in order to support that, the Muslims are going to have to come up with material from his time about what he did and what he said, about his siddha and his hadith. They're going to have to come up from the 7th century in the same place. Now, but let's throw the place away for now. Let's just talk about what he said and did, the siddha in the hadith. Siddha would be the biography, the hadith would be the sayings. In order for Muslims to support their man, they're going to have to find sayings and traditions about what he did from the 7th century. And this should be easy, shouldn't it, Adam? Go ahead, come back to me on that. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely, it should be easy, because apparently he conquered so many cities, he attacked so many locations, he killed and raided 7 tribes of Jews over there. He threw them into another location, so Jews were there. He had fights and debates with Christians, so Christians were there. There are so many idol worshippers there, Mushrikeen in Makkah and Mushrikeen in Medina. So there are so many non-Muslims over there who were either killed by him or his forces, or thrown out of the Medina to a different location and then killed and then made slaves of. And there were so many people whom he raided outside Medina by his forces to the fringes of Oman and Iran as well, all the way to the Tabuk as well in the north. So, yeah, so there are so many non-Muslim involved, that there has to be a lot of writing. I fully agree. There has to be a lot of writing from that time, which could tell us all of these, or at least 10% of these, so that we can have a historical Muhammad. I couldn't agree with you more. I
Okay.
absolutely agree.
7th century. How long ago are we talking about?
1400 years.
1400. Not very long, isn't it? When it
Nope.
comes to literature, when it comes to the writings, when it comes to documents.
Absolutely.
Okay. Where were these writings being written? Who was writing them?
No, now you are probably talking about Islamic thing. I would say
Who would you want to be writing these things about what
everyone.
Muhammad did?
Like, imagine if the Jews have been persecuted like this by Muhammad, they should be writing that as well. Jews are very keen on writing stuff, right? So
Okay.
they should be writing it as well. If the Christians are being persecuted by him, even the Christian came to Medina and asked Muhammad to have a dialogue with him, and Muhammad said, no, let's bring all your people and your mother and your sister and your daughter and my daughter, and let's get the curse upon each other. So they're like, we are not going to swear by Allah to do a curse. So we are going, we are here for a debate, not for cursing. So they should be writing this as well, that we went there, we challenged this prophet. So I would say they should be writing on almost every single area. So it should be parchments, it should be stone carving, because okay, we went there, this is the stone, we won that, and so on and so forth. Based on the historical literature, we know that stone carving and parchments or leaflets, they are all being used at that particular time, or leather skin. So I'm not confining my evidence to Islamic scriptures. I want to expand the horizon to the non-Muslims as well, to figure out Muhammad of that
Okay.
area.
One step further. Like, that's great what you're saying. Let's just move it even back. We know that the Sirah and the Hadith of Jesus were written by companions who were with him.
Yes,
We would call them Sahaba. That's the word that is given by Muslims, the Sahaba, the companions of Muhammad, the companions of Jesus, right? The Sahaba. So Matthew and John would be Sahaba, right?
yes,
Mark and Luke would be Tabi'un, would be the second generation.
absolutely.
They got it from the Sahaba. Paul
Correct.
as well. They would be Tabi'un, right?
Paul would be Sahabi, because he actually saw Jesus Christ with his own eyes, because he was persecuting Christians. So maybe, okay, you can put him in the
Well,
Tabiun,
I
because he
don't
wasn't
think
there
I
in
don't recall
reality at that
Paul
time.
ever seeing Jesus physically, but
Yeah.
he certainly received the Holy Spirit out in the desert. But certainly, let's just put him in Tabiun because he comes later.
Okay.
He wasn't really there to see what Jesus did and said. But Matthew and John were.
There.
So they would be
Yes.
Sahaba. So let's put Matthew and John as Sahaba, and let's put Mark, Luke, and others. Oh, Peter would be also a Sahaba, but let's
Yes.
put, and Paul, let's put them Tabiun just for clarification, okay?
All right.
So we have Sahaba, we have Tabiun, and they wrote down immediately what they heard and what they saw, right?
Absolutely.
At least within their lifetime, obviously, not immediately, but within their lifetime.
Yeah, because they were writing it. So I would say immediately, because they were writing it.
Well,
When
we know
did they
that John
publish
was
it?
here about 50
Yeah.
years later, so he was
Yeah.
in.
When did they publish it? Means when did they actually give it out to the people? That's a separate thing. But so I would say, assume that they were writing in something, keeping their notes before they would write the book.
Okay, so you would agree that we do have written material written by the Sahaba and the Tabi'un of Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
And I would suggest that the Lord purposely made sure they wrote because of the discussion that's happening today. We're going to get to that.
Wow.
Let's ask of Islam. Where are their Sahaba? Where are their Tabi'un? Who are their Sahaba? Who are their Tabi'un? Give me some names.
Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, Abu Huraira,
So
Abbas.
these are people of substantial means. These are people quite wealthy.
Yes, and they were the Sahabi of Muhammad and very close friends.
Yeah. Ubay ibn Ka'ab,
Ubay
Ibn
ibn Ka'b, yeah.
Mas'ud,
Ibn Masud.
Abu Musa. These are all Zayd ibn Thabit. What was Zayd ibn Thabit's responsibility? What was his task? Who was he?
He was the scribe of Muhammad as well. And he
Ooh, scribes. So what do scribes do?
write down what the king or prophet is saying.
And how many secretaries did Muhammad have? According to what the traditions tell us. Do you know the name? Do you know the number?
I know three of them by heart, but not all of them. I have not done study on that.
We now have the names of 65 secretaries of
Ooh, wow,
65. I can
wow.
send them to you. Nonetheless, what is evident is that there was lots of writing at that time, right? We do know that
Understood?
the Quran was written immediately after Muhammad died by Zayd ibn Thabit. Am I correct? In between 632 and
Absolutely,
634. So certainly there is a document that was written down, right? And we know
absolutely.
that 20 years later, it was rewritten again under Uthman, again Zayd ibn Thabit, right?
Hmm.
So all these men could write, they could read. It was quite a literate society, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
And these men were in the caliphal courts, which means they would have been quite wealthy.
Yes.
Is that the case with Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John?
No, they were persecuted, they were thrown out, they were living in misery, and Romans and Jews were behind them to figure out every single chance to throw them out.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, what kind of material did they write on?
The
Paper,
parchments.
parchment, vellum?
Yes. Yes.
No. They wrote on papyrus.
Oh,
What is papyrus? Papyrus are interlocking leaves, papyri leaf that you form. So it's the poor man's paper. It's what people who aren't wealthy would have been able to write on. And that's why all of the documents in the New Testament document would have written on papyri. Papyri disintegrate within about 100 years because they get dry and they just crinkle. If you look at any papyri today, they have to be hermetically sealed in museums that to be protected because you don't let them out to the air because they would just crinkle and you would lose them. So papyri don't last very long. But parchment and vellum are made on animal skins.
hmm.
When you write on animal skins, they're much more durable. If you were to come to London, I would take you down to the Ridback Gallery there in the British Library, and I would show you the Sinaiticus and the Alexandrinus. They're both right next to each other, right in the same room, and they're hermetically sealed. But look at them; they're almost as good today as the day they were written in the 4th and 5th century AD. 4th and 5th century AD. That's 200 to 300 years before the 7th century. We have the entire New Testament. We also have the Vaticanus, which is in Rome, again written on vellum, on animal skins. And that's also from the 4th century. So we have three metropolitan codices of the New Testament alone, a pretty important document. That's why it was commissioned, possibly, maybe by Constantine. We're not sure. But it was commissioned in the 4th century to preserve it. And it is good today as the day was written. Now, there's a little bit of fading in the ink because that the ink does fade, but the parchment doesn't. And each one of these documents, if you look at the Sinaiticus, 62 different deerskin had to be taken to write just that one codex. 62 deer. You have to be pretty wealthy to be able to write on deerskin.
Wow.
You
Wow.
can see
Wow.
why the early disciples, they didn't have money like that. They couldn't use parchment or vellum. That's why they were forced to write on papyrus. And as soon as they wrote, they sent it out to different churches, and that was copied upon copies upon copies. And that's why there's no way in the world that we would expect to have the originals. Why? Because they were written on papyri. Now let's ask the same question of Islam. These men were in the caliphal courts. They were there with Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman. These are caliphs who controlled, well, at that time, all the way from Turkey down to Yemen, from Tripoli all the way to what is today Afghanistan. They controlled a large piece of land. They controlled some of the greatest metropolises. They controlled some of the greatest literary places like Damascus, and they controlled Jerusalem, and they controlled Cairo, and they controlled Ctesiphon, which became Baghdad. And in every one of these places, there was libraries, there was literature, these were secretaries. And these guys in the caliphal courts, according to what the traditions, they were there in Medina, and therefore they would have not needed to use papyrus like the early church had to use. They would have had parchment and they would have had vellum at their disposal. So the question I ask you, looking at the two different genres, looking at the two different ages, looking at the two different groups, the Christians on this side only had papyri to work on. The Muslims on this side had parchment and vellum, animal skins. Who do you think should have the best material for us to look at?
The one with the leather one, because they had all that, and even in Sahih Bukhari 4987 and Sahih Bukhari 4988 and Mishkat 2221 actually talks about them writing on leather of animal skins. So we get from the hadiths that they had leather skin. So
So where
by
are they?
definition, huh?
Where are they?
We can't find them.
Remember in the 2014 debate that I had with Shabirari, did I not ask this question? Where, according to your traditions, according to Sahih Bukhari, volume 6, hadith number 510, it says that Uthman woke up Zaid ibn Thabit. He'd been asleep for 20 years. I'm joking, of course. And he says, get that copy. And that was given to Hafsa, which, according to some traditions, she left under her bed, had been left for 20 years. And rewrite the Quran in the Qurayshi dialect. And then he sent 5 copies. Some say it may be more, but let's just go with 5 because that's what most Muslims claim today. 5 copies to 5 cities: Mecca, Medina, Basra, Baghdad at that time. Well, it really wasn't Baghdad yet, but let's just say Baghdad and Damascus. So those are the 5 cities. And the reason he sent them to those 5 cities is so that they would never be changed again. Because remember, Udaifa had been up in Azerbaijan. He had been battling against the Azerbaijanis. They won the battle. They had gone to the mosque to celebrate it and do their prayers. And there were other Muslims there from Damascus and from Iraq. And as they were listening to the prayers, they heard different recitations of the Quran. And they started fighting with each other. And Udaifa came back down to complain to Uthman that we must never have different Qurans. I heard different recitations of Qurans that is not the same as what we recite. We must make sure we standardize it, and that's why they did it. They standardized the text for the Quran itself in 652, sent to 5 cities. Okay, Adam, there should be 5 copies of those Uthmanic recensions. Can you tell me where there's one today?
You're asking me a question that even the most well-educated historian Muslims are not able to find.
Dayal Altukulich and Ekmel Sanulu, both of them, when they wrote their book on the Musaf al-Sharif, which came out in 2007, had said categorically, there are no Uthmanic recensions. We don't have any of them.
Exactly. So not even a single historian who is even a Muslim was not able to find out these 5 Musafs, which is kind of an amazing.
Adam, this is the greatest book in the history of mankind, according to Islam. This is the final revelation. This is the one that just 1,400 years ago was standardized into one text and sent to 5 cities, and they can't find even one of them. Do you see
that is very problematic in essence.
Those 5 cities I just mentioned, has there been any flood there? Has there been any fires that we know of? Has there been any invasion where they've come and destroyed manuscripts? Could that be the reason?
Not all of 5 of them at the same time, and not all of them had that. So Makkah has been attacked. Yes, we know that. Baghdad has been attacked.
Being destroyed?
No.
So what's the excuse?
I yet have to figure out the excuse.
Ineptitude? Or possibly these never existed for them to preserve.
But
there's
only
1 or 2 propositions. Possibly they were just inept. They didn't know how to preserve the manuscripts. They just weren't paying attention. Or the other possibility is they never existed to begin with.
But okay, now let's finish the second issue, because Hadith books, such highly regarded as Sahih al-Bukhari.
We're getting to that. Before we get that, just answer this question.
Yes, one of the 2, but I don't think the first one is true because of the fact that they know this is the Quranic Musaf, and they know it is supposedly written by Uthman with very care by using the 4 of the most renowned people. So you cannot just say they didn't want it to preserve it. They didn't know how to preserve it, because these people have gone to other locations where they have burned the libraries already, so they know how to preserve it. They know that people have been preserving it. They know how to preserve the manuscript. So the first answer is I will reject it. Because of the holiness of the Quran, they will preserve it. Even right now, we preserve the paper. If you come to Pakistan, we put it in a leather or clothing, and put it there and put it up on a very high place. Whenever we want to read it, we clean up ourselves and then take it out and then read it. So I will disagree with the first point.
Can I
100%.
make a point?
Here
Can I
come
make a point?
Hutton's here. Come on over.
Yes.
I'm just listening from this side. Just a quick point. One of the things Muslim might able to come back to your response is, if you remember, according to Islamic tradition, when they murdered Uthman, just according to tradition. So what was Uthman doing?
Reading the Quran.
He was reading the Quran. And
Yes.
what did they do with the Quran after they murdered Uthman? They played
Quran-
football.
Yes.
They played football.
With the Quran.
Understanding of Quran is wholly untouchable looks like developed later days or later decades.
Okay, so
Just a quick comment on that.
No, but
They
like,
were very
may
abusive
may
with the Quran.
may I provide a rebuttal on that, Sister Hatun?
Yes, you
So,
can.
according to Islamic narrative, these people,
Go ahead.
even though they were proclaiming to be Muslim, but they were munafiq and they were never Muslims. So they played with the Quran because they were kuffar. In reality, they were munafiqs, I guess. So they would do that. But my question is, was he reading the Uthmanic manuscript? How do you know he was reading the Uthmanic manuscript? Because when these manuscripts were there, the five major one, do you think?
No, my rebuttal wasn't about that. My response was, I think, kind of questioning. Oh, Quran is wholly untouchable. They would, by default, preserve it. Wouldn't fit with the Islamic tradition because, yes, they are seen by one another as not following Islam's fullness, but they are the very family of Muhammad who murdered Uthman. So Muslims are fighting with one another. They are murdering with one another. And like they murdered Uthman and then they didn't even give any attention to his Quran. They just kicked the Quran on the floor stuff. That was just side comment on that. Jay knows more about those so-called perfectly compiled and copied manuscripts that was being sent to many different cities, magically got lost. Jay knows it might be beneficial to remember. Articulate says it's a unfortunate.
It's unfortunate, yeah.
It is unfortunate. We don't know why we don't have those Qurans.
I pretty well know why, but I'm not going to say it for now because that's not the point. So we've got a problem here. Even with the Quran, they cannot find their original manuscripts and they cannot find those five, and they cannot produce even a little bit of those five. What's second only to the Quran in importance?
What's
The
second to
Prophet
Quran? The Hadiths, the Prophet, the Hadiths, and his Sunnah.
Okay, so as Muhammad is doing things and as he's saying things, don't you think people would be writing down what he's doing and what he's saying?
Yes, they were.
You know, you've seen those pictures of Kim Il-sung or the North Korean leader. Have you noticed whenever he's walking around, there's these men with little notebooks writing down everything
Yep.
he's saying. You notice how they do that even today?
Yep.
All the more so if you think that somebody is the final prophet, the greatest prophet, the paradigm for all mankind, for everyone, everywhere, in every place, in every time. If you believe that that's for the man you're looking at and what he's saying and what he's doing, you would want to write down everything he's saying, what he's doing, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so even more so, I would say, well, the Quran is important, yes, and we've gone through that. Everybody has confronted that. But how many people are asking this question? Well, what about what Muhammad said and did? What about his sirah and his hadith? I would suggest that they should have been written down immediately.
I couldn't agree with you more.
So where are they?
Oh, we have so many Hadith books.
Okay, written by the Sahaba and the Tabi'un.
Mishkat.
Mishkat al-Masabi. So that's the 6 compilations of the 6 major hadith.
Yes.
But that's written in the 11th century, collecting that which came from the 9th century, right? Still not from the 7th century.
Musnad Ahmad. He was pretty close.
Who?
Muwatta Malik. Muwatta Malik is the Imam.
Oh, that's the favorite. Everybody loves Muwatta Malik.
Yeah. It's pretty close.
Wow. That's a good one. And he was right there, right?
Yeah.
And he was hearing what Muhammad said. Seeing what Muhammad did. And he wrote exactly what Muhammad said and did, right?
Alhamdulillah.
Okay, where is his document?
We don't have it?
Hold on a minute. You're the man that knows everything. You're the one that's been a Muslim. You tell me, where is his document? Where is there any manuscript from Al-Malik? Muwatta al-Malik. Where is this Muwatta al-Malik? Everybody loves that. You love it. Show me any reference of any extant manuscript. You know what I mean by extant manuscript? That we
No,
have in our
please
hands
explain it
today.
to us.
Extant means manuscript that we can look at, that we can have in our hand. So when I did that debate in 2014, what was I talking about? Extant manuscripts. So when I was talking about the Topkapi, that's in the Topkapi Museum. When I was talking about the Samarkand, that's in Uzbekistan. When I was talking about the Sana, that's the one that's in Yemen. When I was talking about the Husseini, that's the one that's in Cairo. When I was talking about the Petropolitanus, that's the one that's in France. When I was talking about the Ma'il, that's the one that's in London. So I was actually talking about 6 major manuscripts. There have been some that have been added to in the last 11 years, but these are the 6 earliest manuscripts, most complete manuscripts that Muslims own today, all of which are extant. That means we can look at them, we can see them, we can actually read what they are saying and actually date the pages that they're written on, the papyrus, the parchment and the vellum that they're written on. That's what I'm asking. You need extant manuscripts. Where are they for the Hadith and the Sirah? Where's Muwatta's extant manuscript?
So the oldest known manuscript of Muwatta Malik is 400 years after that of Muhammad, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow, where'd you get that?
In one of your lectures.
Oh, you're quoting me again. You've jumped the gun on this. I don't care about 400. I want from the 7th century because he's living in the 7th century. So I've been told. Okay, I want someone who was there. I don't care about someone who thought, who got it from someone, who got it from someone, who got it from someone, who got it from someone. I want someone who is actually there. I want a Matthew and a John. I want a Mark and a Luke. Somebody of that caliber. Give me a name. You can. What do they claim? Zaid ibn Thabit. He's a second.
We don't have anything. We don't have anything of him.
Nothing.
So I can't claim that. Sorry.
You can't claim that. You're going to have a problem trying to claim anything. So let's go ahead and let's see what happened 5 months ago.